there was a picture of him in his Freemasonic garb. You see that one?
Yeah, I saw that one. It seemed as if he's dressing up for it. People, well, they've denied that he's even been part of the Freemasons. So it's like he's trying to make that whole narrative himself.
Well, that would make sense too, because you see, they're upstarts. They're always trying to prove they've got some kind of special membership. You understand? Like they're obsessed with exclusivity. That they're members of exclusive clubs. Now, in that photograph, he's looking at the camera with a smug look on his face, like, "Look at me, I'm powerful. I'm in the Freemasons." It's like somebody who's probably, if it turns out that he's never been a member of the Freemasons, then it's kind of interesting, because that sort of justifies their whole need for, their whole need for this to feel special and worthy. And he definitely has the look on his face. His eyes are completely dead in every photograph. There's another picture where it's almost like his modeling shot, where he obviously thinks he's a lot better looking than he is, and he's doing this look away thing. And a lot of people have sent me photographs of psychopaths they were in a relationship, and the males, when they take photographs of themselves, they do this sort of like pensive, pretend they're kind of sensitive, and they don't look directly at the camera. They look away like this, like, I'm so sensitive or something like that. It's almost like they're trying to make themselves look deep and insightful and wise and stuff like, which is a very, very common thing with psychopaths. But another thing too is that they all seem to do this thing, and it relates to violence. Like there's one woman who wrote to me, and she was with a guy who was in Iraq with the U.S. military, but he was a truck driver for the National Guard. He was basically a delivery boy, and just delivering food and stuff around for the soldiers. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to make out he was some kind of combat veteran in special forces. So like he borrowed a machine gun off like some guy and would take photographs of himself in bullet-ridden buildings with a gun behind him, and he'd be like this, like contemplating the battle he just fought. And he never fought a single battle. And on his Facebook page, one day out of the blue, he posted a picture of himself in a hospital bed, in a military hospital bed, like this, like he'd been seriously injured. And it turned out that he hurt his back changing the flat tire on his truck, but tried to make out that he was in combat with the bad. That kind of thing. This is the absurdity of the psychopath, and this is one of the reasons we should laugh at them too, because behind the damage that they do, there's a huge element of absurdity about them. If you look at his video about the Knights Templars and stuff, there isn't an original thought in his head. Even the Unabomber's manifesto, he almost word for word just copied it, because psychopaths don't have an original thought. They just they're plagiarizers and mimicking copyists, and they don't have an ability to think an original thought except be devious. And you can also see the disconnect from reality. Like there's pictures of him. You look on his Facebook profile, he was big into the violent video games like Call of Duty or whatever it's called. And then, as we talked in other videos, Pella had mentioned how the experience of the psychopath can be scaled up to the greater picture in society, right? Yeah. With a psychopath, they scale it up in a different way. They'll scale it up from killing someone on a video game to killing somebody in real life, and it's just that's the way they scale up. Yeah. It's not, it's just I've done the simulator now. Now it's time to learn how to fly a real plane, that kind of thing. And the fact that he killed those people in the manner he did, going around shooting them one by one, and I'm sure every last one of them probably begged for mercy. It was just business, and he even said when the police arrested him that, according to reports, he said it was cruel but necessary. So he was playing he was playing a video game. He was playing the next level of Call of Duty. You understand?
But I would like to ask you, because in some of our deeper interviews where we talk about the difference between a psychopath, a natural psychopath, and and what you have coined a proto-psychopath, which is basically someone that's created or manufactured. I'm not sure if I caught it in the right way, but to make someone a proto-psychopath, you need to destroy their personality. They need to be
a lot of it is brain damage.
And what I'm just seeing is that it seems to me that what I would call the natural psychopaths, the few that have been out there visibly in the media, they do not have this weird obsessive compulsion to do things like meticulously plan and like if you take a person like everyone knows Adolf Hitler, right?
Yeah.
The amount of psychological stressors in his life, the damage that he has suffered, right, makes it valid to estimate that he was more a proto-psychopath.
Oh no, Hitler wasn't a psychopath. He wasn't.
And the same with this guy, right? His writing is so obsessive that it points to the fact that he also somehow is a manufactured psychopath.
Well, we'll have to find out more about his background. We don't know a lot about him yet. But the fact to me is that, like, okay, there's conspiracy going around that he was some kind of CIA or some kind of special...
There's always stuff like that afterwards, right?
Always stuff like that, but we have to not look at it right now. And the same reason we have to not look at the mainstream reports. We have to step back and not buy into what any of the stuff we're being given. And all I'm going by is the photographs I've seen of him. And the photographs I've seen of him scream psychopath. They don't scream proto-psychopath because he has the physical... A proto-psychopath does not have the physical traits that a psychopath does. It's as simple as that. They just don't have them. Even if they act like one, they don't have the dead eyes. They don't have the sneer. They don't have the strange Adam's apple that sticks out like a knife or something because of the super high testosterone levels. They don't have... A proto-psychopath wouldn't have the same... there's something about him. He has that look that you'd see in like Hitler Youth, you know, like the Hitler Youth types, the most ones that were arrested of the most sadistic crimes. A lot of them had a similar look. They were obviously psychopaths who saw like National Socialism as a means to sort of gain power, and they did whatever it took to get it. And they weren't so much fanatics as much as they were driven by what National Socialism could do for them. And he seems to have that all over him, his obsession with that he's a Knights Templar, he thinks he's some kind of heroic figure. This is drawn out of a need for attention. He's absolutely so happy right now. He's absolutely happy. He's sitting in prison thinking, I am the most famous person in the world right now, and he's loving every second of it.
Yeah, but
how different they are than us.
But isn't that I still have a problem with the degrees of when someone is more what you would call naturally prone to psychopathy. I don't see why they would have this obsession with narratives and with legitimizing themselves. I tend to go back to philosophy, right? Kierkegaard talks about the two ways of seduction and courtship, where there is the natural way that is he's the Don Juan figure, right? And he just can't help himself. It's in his nature to seduce and to be a
serial womanizer, yeah.
Where the obsessive womanizer is doing things like writing a book like The Game, and making it a performance thing, right? And the two are extremely different. One, they can seem to act in a similar manner, but the background, one is natural and one is staged. And what I see with these people, right? What's the psychopath where with the family where all the women went and killed people? What's his name?
Charles Manson.
Yes, that's what I would say is a classical example of what you call a natural psychopath, because he does not have these ideas about trying to narrate his own life. He's just doing it. Where someone like this Norwegian guy, he needs to legitimize everything. He needs to explain it. He does a lot of research and he does the copy pasting of every single underground movement, dissident. He needs.
But they all do that. They all do that in one way or another. When a psychopath is targeting a person for a relationship, they literally trawl and examine and research every aspect of that person's life they possibly can in order to mold the new version of themselves, to manipulate them. The fact that this guy in Norway only put up his Facebook page a few days ago, before the attacks, shows to me that he had fully crafted this persona of the heroic, sage Western Christian civilization that he had built for himself. That I have to disagree with you there. They do plan. Charles Manson constantly legitimized the narrative of his he wrote songs and everything about it. They used to sit down and have long Bible lectures where he would actually legitimize passages of the Bible, to legitimize what this group was doing and why they were doing it for him. No, it depends on what the target is. No, they're driven towards specific goals, but they're not driven in general. Like they could live in a house that's absolutely filthy, unkempt, unclean. However, and they may live like bums. However, if they're targeting someone who, say, is a wealthy person, they will buy the most expensive clothes, research what the people down at the yacht club are wearing, and will rent expensive jewelry and watches, and go to and research it to the 9th degree in order to craft this persona that will walk into the the millionaire's cocktail bar where this woman is, and she'll believe that he's like some kind of high-flying executive. This is what they do. But the rest of his life is completely in chaos because it's a reflection of their minds. Because behind the actual persona they give to you, if you look at their brains on their MRIs or CAT scans, it's in chaos. They cannot partition information in their brains within designated parts of the cerebral cortex. It fires all over the place. They don't process math here, language there. The thing is like this. It's wherever they can find a partition within their brain is where they store this random ad hoc information, and that's reflected in how they are outside the persona that you experience them. Because inside the psychopathic mind, behind the mask of sanity, is an internal psychotic maelstrom of information they're desperately trying to process and hold together. And you will have slips. The time to see this in a psychopath is when they're between personas, when they're decommissioning one persona and bringing in another. That is the point where you will see the mask of sanity drop, and you will encounter the lunatic that's behind there. Because what you will see is nonsensical use of language, strange comments that make no sense, a sort of a giddy, chipper, glowing demeanor as they know that they've sacrificed the previous persona, they've killed that off, and they're now looking forward to the anticipation of entering the new persona, and this gives them a rush. It's like an actor who's just been told you got the lead in a new Hollywood movie, and they're running around the living room all excited. It's the same thing inside their brains for them. They're absolutely giddy and ecstatic at jumping into the new persona. But in between that gap, between the persona they used to be and the persona they're coming, you will encounter someone who will be basically behaving like a schizophrenic. They will be saying things that won't make any sense. They'll be they cannot hold the subject. If you ask them about anything, they can't stay that. They can't stay. It's a stranger. And what's interesting about it? It's not only a stranger to the person that they're manipulating, that they previously have manipulated, but they're also a stranger to themselves, because they don't really know who they are, because they have not invented the bespoke persona to jump into. It's like the puppet master. The hand has been removed from the ventriloquist dummy, and the ventriloquist dummy is sitting there like that, waiting for the hand to come back in and bring life back to it. And that's just what they're like. But what's happening is, well, at the end of the previous persona and the beginning of the new one, they will decommission. As they're decommissioning the previous persona, they're filling all the information that they now no longer need to manipulate that person or situation with meticulous research into what the next persona is going to be. So it's like one set of predatory skill sets is being decommissioned, while another set is being built. And the moment between the two is where we see the psychopath true insanity, in that moment, in that pause, that parentheses between their two predatory personas. And what happened with him was, his previous persona was, I don't know, loser, I don't know what he was, right? He decommissioned that and built up this new persona of a Christian warrior who would save Europe, right? What happened was, in between the two, he got a machine gun and a bomb. And he had planned all this. There's actually something happened, and he did it. Now, his new persona now is a guy in prison who's a hero to himself, and he assumes to others. But that's what happened there. His madness came out when he was jumping between two personas, and unfortunately, he had bombs and machine gun.
So what actually makes them escalate? Because I kind of see a few patterns about when some of those personas get challenged, or call it a reaction or response to failure. Yeah. It's as if the more they fail or are unable to retain that illusory persona, then they need to start over or escalate it.
They usually run away and start over. They'll usually make a run for it and start. When it's breaking down or they're being exposed, and they're not a violent psychopath or they're not a particularly charismatic one, they'll make a run for it and they'll start over. It's like a lizard seeing a shadow of an eagle in the desert. It'll make a quick run for it to the nearest rock. It's just about even thinking or pausing, and that's what they do. They'll make a run for it, and then they'll start all over again. Now, depending on how clever they are, how intense their psychopathic drive is. Remember, even all psychopaths have a frequency range of psychopaths. They're not all full on or low frequency. There's just like in all aspects of behavior. There's a frequency range between that lunatic in Oslo and the majority of them, which are just shifty manipulators and con artists. But what happens is that they will just start over again, run away, and depending on how clever, charismatic, or good-looking they are, it's very easy for an attractive woman to start over again, because all she has to do is start hitting on fellas. You know, you understand? A guy who's, say, overweight and bald and has no money, it's going to be a lot more difficult for him. He's going to have to work. Psychopath in him is going to have to work a little bit harder to find niches and cliques for him to get into, to join, and then start manipulating people. You know, he'll have to do things like, I don't know, go to AA meetings pretending he's an alcoholic or some other thing like that, and in there try and target another desperate person. Same thing with a good-looking guy. A good-looking guy will have no problem starting over again if he has a nice accent or stuff like that. He'll just go in and just find some older woman to sweep off her feet with the lines of bullshit they give them. So it depends on what they look like and what their circumstances are. But yeah, they start over again in one way or another. Because the previous person never existed. So it's just like an actor moving into a different role.
But why do they? What makes them escalate into violence, like extreme violence?
Well, they're still human beings at the end of the day, right? So we don't know of that. Even though, well, they still look like you. They still got human physiology, right? Yeah. They would say that, right? But they could still be affected by environmental factors. We don't know this guy's history. We just don't know. We don't know if he could have been a big drug user. In fact, he said he was in bodybuilding, right? And so a lot of bodybuilding was that. Taking things like testosterone, and he would have already had high levels of testosterone from being a psychopath. So that could have escalated them up to the extreme violent level. So we have to wait and see. But he went off. You see, also there's other things too there as well. It's like how a lot will come out that what happened will be down to like incompetence of the security forces and the police and stuff. Because I was reading now, it took 90 minutes for the police to show up on this island. We think, he also planted a bomb, so that may have been the distraction and the reason why. But still, it's all kinds of factors. Maybe if it had happened in, say, an American city where all the cops got armed and they start shooting, well, the cop would have came in and probably shot him dead within a few minutes. So he may have only killed 10. But because he was on this island and there was no way for the victims to get out, and there was no police protection, he just went around killing, basically shooting fish in a barrel. And that's all it was to him. It was just an interesting experience for him.
But what made this guy let himself get caught in this way? Usually these extreme cases, as some have already pointed out, they usually do suicide by cop or something like that. What's his? Do you think he's got a goal or?
Yeah, his goal is to sit in prison. And well, the reason why a lot of them kill themselves, mainly in the U.S., is because they'll face the death penalty. But in Norway, he'll probably get, he won't get the death penalty, and he knows that. No, he sees himself as a martyr. He'll see himself as he'll see himself as like Rudolf Hess in Spandau Prison. He'll think that he'll be getting letters from the outside, people telling him he was a great hero. He saved Europe, right-wing extremists writing to him, and other types. He'll just go on his merry way. Yeah, no, attention. He's a star now. He's the most famous man on earth. He's got what every psychopath ever wants. To be the whole world looking at him and going, they don't care what the reason why they're looking at you. Once you're looking at them, you see this a lot in these sort of like X Factor type and American Idol type TV shows, especially in the early stages. You see a lot of psychopaths trying to get onto the show. And they have that. I don't know if you've seen these shows, but they kind of like audition nobodies in front of like 3 celebrities who see if they have talent or not. And you will see vast numbers of psychopaths on the early days of these shows. They don't care if they win, lose. They don't care if they're selected, but they'll always attempt to make a scene so the camera spends more time on them than like someone who's just there to sing. So the psychopath who's on X Factor or American Idol will be the one most likely to start screaming or getting on their knees or getting outside and throwing things around and losing their minds and causing a commotion or insulting people. And that's just so they can have the camera on them for that little bit longer. You see that? And, there's a very good video of the Big Brother, the people who didn't make Big Brother. It's on YouTube somewhere. The people who didn't make Big Brother in the UK, the contestants that didn't make it, and nearly every single one of them is a psychopath. And they're like, I'll do whatever you fucking want me to do. Whatever you fucking want, I'll do it on TV. You just tell me. Put me in the Big Brother house and you won't regret it. I'll have the whole fucking nation talking about it. And they're all psychopaths. They're all See, psychopaths are obsessed with attention. They want everyone looking at them.
Wow.
They want to be the center of attention. He's got that. I know it's almost impossible for a normal brain to comprehend. Why would you want to be the most famous person in the world for murdering 90 kids in cold blood?
What's the need? Why is it that they have this extreme need for attention?
Because they're trying to validate their existence. Because they all talk about this sense of emptiness and nothing inside them. When this is one of the reasons they'll turn to alcohol a lot and drugs. Is because the boredom that they have a level of boredom that's impossible to comprehend. Like do you remember when you were a teenager, you got very bored? You could get very bored when you were a teenager. I remember being quite bored as a teenager. Well, imagine that boredom. Your whole life, never stopping. Now, when you would have a moment where you weren't manipulating, conning, or fucking somebody, right, literally and metaphorically, right, what do? You cannot sit there and think. You cannot sit there and contemplate. You cannot self-realize your own reality and your own place in the world, and you won't have this philosophical construct in your intellect to think about things like a normal person. Even an uneducated normal person does that. A psychopath can't do that. So that's why they'll do things like get drunk, or they have schemes, and they're filling that boredom with these endless schemes and these endless scams.
So what you're saying is that they are in perpetual state of agitation, but is that from early on, from birth? Is it some sort of epigenetics thing? Is it something that comes from overstressed or over-dominated parents that?
No, it's nothing like that at all. It's just that's the way they are. It's like, why does a zebra have stripes and a leopard have spots? It's the same thing. Why are psychopaths constantly bored? They just are. It's just in there. It's just part of the pathology. They have this boredom and sense of emptiness inside them that they fill with all these fantasy worlds they create around them.
But isn't the same thing true about the extreme empath, right? About the artistic mind? Isn't that also what drives them? They just externalize the agitation in some sort of
yeah, definitely. But it's different. It's not. It's because they have a sense of self-realization. They're working through the process. They're externalizing their internal philosophical nature of themselves through a piece of art.
So it's based in their ego somehow. That they
definitely. I think it is. Yeah. Oh, art definitely is based in the ego. Absolutely. It is insightful and it is meaningful, but it's not as spiritual as many people assume. A lot of artists I know are not. Most artists I know are not. They're normal people, but I'd say the majority of them are not particularly deep thinkers. You know, they're not particularly over empathic people. Some are. Some extremely are. But many are just. It's just a manifestation of their ego coming out a different way, but not in an attention-seeking way. More of it's almost like they're cutting open their skin and peeling their bones apart in order to show what's inside there, in a non-material sense. And that's what art is. But absolutely, yeah, it's totally ego-based. I mean, any artist that says that their art is not a product of their ego is lying.
So when we see these extreme cases of escalation, is it somehow conscious choice, or is it circumstance that drives them into those violent spirals of sort?
Well, no, it's just business. It's just business. He wanted to be world famous. He wanted to be a hero, and he devised this method of doing it. That's all. It's just business. It's not as it's just like, this is what I want. How do I get it? I want to be the most famous person in the world. I can't sing. I can't dance. I can't act. I can't write a great book. I can't paint a great picture. Hey, but I can kill a load of people and get on TV. And that's literally what you're dealing with.
So it's actually a sort of laziness. It's a lack of talent, a lack of focus.
They're incredibly lazy. Look at his webpage. His manifesto was plagiarized word for word from the Unabomber's manifesto.
He just made 50 pages into 1500.
yeah, but it was complete and total plagiarized. It wasn't even that he added anything interesting extra on it. He just over-labored the point that the Unabomber had made to legitimize himself as a great writer. He probably, when he was finished, he probably thought he was James Joyce or something, or Ibsen, you know.
This brings me on to a very kind of a scary topic. Is it contagious?
No, I don't.
Because the
The
way that
pro
I see all these, well, psychopathic behaviors and leaders and role models, it seems as if society is, at least to some extent, mimicking them.
Oh yeah, that's all. That's the proto-psychopathic thing. No, that's the prototype. The proto-psychopathic thing is completely contagious, unfortunately. But the psychopathic, so psychopathics don't become, people don't become psychopaths. I'm talking about authentic psychopaths just by coming into contact with them. So what happens is that they will emulate them. You know, they will emulate the pathology. And yeah, it is scary. It is something we should. That's why I wrote Puzzling People. This is something we need to be really working on right now. What do you think all these copycat killers are all about? You know, they're also seeing that this guy got attention. Maybe I can get it too. You know,
But
like
it's
those.
extremely destructive when it gets into what you would call a normal mind, because even though you might, for ego reasons, mimic behavior like that, you have a conscience, and
Yep,
it
yep,
will damage you so much. It's like
yeah. If
when
you're, yep,
soldiers come back from war, they are
yep,
totally
yep.
broken.
Yep, yep. It's completely horrible. This is what I'm all about these days. I'm trying to explain to people, look, we have to stop, blindly listening to authority figures, because many of them are psychopaths, and they will just. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Look at the post-traumatic stress thing of soldiers. A lot of them end up dealing with that by doing things like. Destroying their marriages and stuff like that, or becoming alcoholics. I was reading something very interesting there that uh, there's actually a phenomena among 9/11 firefighters. What happened was when all the firefighters who were killed and who were married, someone had an idea, and it was a nice idea, that a firefighter who was there that day would sort of like be a surrogate father figure and look after the kids and stuff like that, and take care of these families, like be the husband, like a rent-a-husband kind of thing.
Hmm.
And what happened was they ended up nearly in every case marrying these women. It's just the strangest thing. And a lot of that was the post-traumatic stress thing that they experienced on the day, trying to almost heal it, both for the widows of the firefighters and the firefighters themselves who survived, because there's always that survivor guilt thing.
Mm.
So it's the most strangest thing. Oh yeah, and the psychopaths know this. That's why they don't care. That's why you look at all these Americans, kids who go off to Iraq and Afghanistan, and British ones as well. They don't give it. They don't care about them when they get back. They'll all end up on the streets, and they'll just be forgotten about in the VA hospitals with no arms and legs. And that's what the psychopaths in charge don't care about them. It's just business. They want the oil in Iraq. They want the opium in Afghanistan. And they just do what they have to do to get it. End of story. It's just business. You see, what happens with us is we tend to put our own empathic nature in the place of the psychopath and try to explain it. And I did that. I'm looking at the look on your face now. I had that look for about 5 years. I was like, what the fuck? What's going on? And then, what is this parent? I cannot grasp. And then one day I was on Instant Messenger, MSN Instant Messenger, with a psychopath who had met a group that had psychopaths on it, and he just said to me, look, you're missing the fundamental point. It's just business. It's not anything else. Whatever has to be done to get the job done, no matter what it is, it's not personal. When a psychopath ruins a person's life, it's not personal. It's not. They may even. He said they may even like that person in some way. They may even say to themselves, "Oh, he was a lot of fun. I liked him. But I still have to steal his wife and his house. You know what I mean? But it wasn't. He wasn't driven by any kind of resentment against him. He just wanted his wife and home, so he took it. And it's not a case of too bad. It's a case of, well, that's what you do. It's just business. And when you these things, you understand what a psychopath is. It's just business. It's not personal. He had nothing personal against those people he killed yesterday. It's just business. I know it sounds incredible, but that's what it is. It's just business.
It just seems as if there's no easy resolution for normal people. There's no way past it. How do we get past it? Is there a way out?
Well, there is. As I said, and this is what my next book will be about. In a personal sense, it's no contact ever again, and then to find out what is wrong with you. What is wrong with you, the victim, the target, that brought this bullshit into your life? Because if you don't learn from that mistake, you're doomed to repeat it, okay? If you've got a soft spot for exciting people, if you've got for rich people, you've got a soft spot for a father figure that you never had when you were growing up, the psychopath will fulfill that missing void. So you have to fix that out in yourself. And then once you do that, you're okay. That on a societal level, oh boy, it's going to be difficult, but it is possible. But it'll only be done by person by person. Literally, we have to go right back to kindergarten and re-educate ourselves.
So you're saying we need to really regress all the way back to some sort of, well, we've talked about symbolism and paganism. We need to sort of take our society back in order to take it forward?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And also, as individuals, we have to take ourselves back to our childhood. There's one of the things that many people who've been damaged by a psychopath in a relationship or bullied by at work is a very common thing they'll all say is that this individual robbed me of the last spark of childhood wonder that I had. And they were almost like a paedophile that came back to finish off the job. And
I've seen something funny with people that get broken down, like by psychopaths or by a stressor that resembles it, is that they regress naturally. They go back and start acting like teenagers, and they become like before they met them. They attempt to go back to before that.
Yeah. They actually feel physically younger and everything. Yes, and that's what we have to do as a society. We have to go right back to before we were educated. And you know, when we entered kindergarten, we entered the psychopathic control grid, because that was the moment when we were put into all our different social little programs and our social demarcations and, you know, archetypal societal caricatures that we were to become for the rest of our lives. And it always is about submission to authority figures, submission to authority, and the notion that only through hierarchical advancement can we achieve anything in this life. And that's where we have to go back and literally rebuild a new society from scratch.
This is fascinating.
With a whole set of...
This is what you kind of see in that the whole the green movement and the neo-pagan movement, and
once it's not politically motivated, like everything else, these movements started out like the ecology movement. When the ecology movement started, it was great. It was just I can remember I was a member of them in Ireland when they were called the Ecology Party. A bunch of hippies and young kids, and a lot of punk rock kind of kids came out of that as well. And they were big into things. They were into things like stopping, you know, industrial pollution from being poured into rivers. They wanted to better water supplies to houses, and stopping things like fox hunting. I told you the fox hunting story. That's how I got onto that. They wanted to, instead of having animals, more humane methods of farming. You know, instead of having pigs in big factories, having them in like living in woods and stuff like that. You know, and it was great. And then suddenly, around the late 90s, I can remember, and actually carried my interest in this stuff over to the United States. I got involved in the Green Party there, in a little bit, in a sort of a roundabouts ways. And I went to, it was a talk at New York University. It was about 1992, and it was about nuclear power and how bad that was. And at the time, I was quite anti-nuclear, and I went, and the talk was by a woman called Dr. Helen Caldecott, who's a well-known Australian environmentalist, political activist. And I sat there, I was going there, and I just thinking to myself, this should be interesting, we should get some good information here on how to deal with it. And all she was talking about the whole night was how we had to wipe out the human race, how the human race is a pollutant on the earth, how we have to reduce population, and talk about how, wouldn't it just be wonderful if no humans being left on the earth? And she went like this to the audience. She goes, now imagine in New York, in Manhattan here, if all the people were gone. Just think about how beautiful that would be. Trees would come back, the animals would move back in, and all the buildings that humans made would be gone. Wouldn't that be beautiful? And she said it in such a way as if she was testing the audience to see how they would react. You understand what I'm saying? And ever since that moment on, I've been researching into her afterwards, and I found that she's tied up with all kinds of communist and Marxist groups, and she's United Nations up to Jaxie and everything. So she's part of that. She was part of the initial foot soldiers, of the political and corporate foot soldiers who entered the ecology and Green Party movement and turned it into something that was completely not to begin with. Turned it into this sort of like UN population reductionist manifesto where where we have to tax everybody. A new way. That's really all the Green movement is today now. It's a way of justifying it. More taxes. It's a revenue system. There's nothing to do. Absolutely nothing to do with environmentalism. Nothing at all. And the Green Party here in Ireland are absolutely hilarious. They're like extremely right wing. They support like the war in Iraq and everything. It's unbelievable, and it's like, but they have the word environmentalist in front of green, that's it again. That's like what psychopaths are like. They put the label in front of themselves, but it's just a label. It doesn't mean anything. That kind of thing. It's like me. It's like me calling myself an artist. Why are you an artist? Because I have a jar of paint. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're like. They're very absurd, in that way. That's what they're like. When you talk to them, you will see things like, I'm an IT expert. Oh yeah, why? I have Bill Gates' biography. They have an absurd, and this is another way we can deal with them as well. We laugh at their absurdity, and we expose it for what it is.
But isn't that an escalating trigger? Because then we are deconstructing, we are destroying their self-image. So wouldn't that make them escalate? I'm just thinking. I know. I think the thing that makes them escalate is fear, because they respond to the changes in the chemical changes in their target's body through the application of fear. So you're saying that they wouldn't escalate by us laughing at them and
No. I think they would just move away. They would be resentful and say, "Screw you," and move on. No, they'd find something else. But what they will escalate to is fear, because there's a very good video with Sam Balkeen. It was a documentary called I, Psychopath. It's on these bits and pieces on YouTube. And Sam Balkeen, who calls himself a narcissist, he's clinically diagnosed. He says he's actually one point he's irritating and pissing off and disturbing the producer of the documentary. And Balkeen lets it rip, and he goes, "Well, I know exactly what's happening here. Your blood pressure's changing. You're crashing your serotonin," and he's talking about the chemical changes in the guy's body that Sam Balkeen is implementing through his intimidation and mind games of him.
So you're saying that some of them are at a level where they are extremely conscious of what they do to someone else?
They all are. Every last one of them. They're completely conscious of they're completely aware of what they're doing. they've harnessed the skill from the time they were teenagers.
So even though they don't have the nomenclature and the academic knowledge, they know exactly what it is they're causing in other people.
No, they know the reaction. No, they know. No, he does because he's actually studied into it. No, but the rest of them just know that when they bullied this kid in school, the kid had physical changes to him, and they realized the way I treated this, and then made friends with him. There was other changes, and then bullied him again. There was other changes. And they ridiculed him. There was other change, and then they learn a skill set a skill set that causes changes in other people. Because when you don't have an emotional depth to you, you have a lot of time to analyze other people's emotional changes. You understand? It's almost like when you watch a sperm fertilizing an egg, it's very fascinating to us, but a sperm and an egg, it's not. It's just what happens. So they're the same way too. There's no emotional interaction. They're not in the situation, so they observe it from a distance. So, like, you and I are both in school, right? And you're the kid in class, and you're across from me. And you may be a new kid from the school with a different accent, and you're a bit shy. I walk over there, and I make friends with you. And I see changes in your body. I see your pupils dilating. I see you smiling more. I see you standing a little more upright. I see you getting a little more confident, right? And then I'll be noticing these changes in you. And I'll be thinking to myself, well, just by making friends with him, he changed. He looks different. His skin looks healthier and everything. He has less acne, and he's not. He's talking more, and he had that stutter. He kind of lost it. And then they would think to themselves, I wonder what would happen if I treated them badly. And then I would start. Maybe I'd ridicule you in front of other kids, and I'd see your head going down like this. And then I'd see you when you're saying, why did you do that? That wasn't nice. Why did you make fun of me in front of the other kids? And I'd be looking at you, and I'd be observing that the veins in your neck would be sticking out, your heart would be palpitating, your hands would be fidgeting, and your eyes would be blinking, and things like that. And they'd be going, well, that's extremely interesting. And then they learn how to do that in everybody. And they all know they're doing that, and that's what makes them incredibly powerful. Because when we encounter them on a playing field, it's not level. They have an enormous clandestine advantage in terms of manipulating us that we don't have.
It's fascinating stuff. I keep coming back to when you talk about these things. How many popular references, how many examples of modern mythology is out there that have never been explained in this way. I don't know if it's intentional or if it's to prepare us or make us more comfortable with that type of personality. Well,
it's not so much that personality. It's the expression of the psychopathic personality through authority figures and structures. It's to make us more susceptible and acquiesce to them. Like, I have a video recently of, and there's a lot of Christian art. If you look at Christian art from the Middle Ages, right, it's sadistic. It's especially anything to do with the crucifixion. But there's a picture of Jesus, and he has a subliminal penis and testicles on his chest, and he's on the cross with a gigantic phallus here and two testicles, and it's shaped into supposed to be like his body muscles, this part of his body, and at the bottom of the cross is a skull symbolizing death. So on the top of the cross is salvation, and all around the phallus are like saints and authority figures in the church, and that's to tell you, that's how they would tell you that sex was bad. You'd go in, you would have an erection seeing Jesus. You didn't know why, but you would believe that the way to not end up like the skull at the bottom of his feet and to live forever would be to obey the authority figures in the church. And that goes on. That's how the world is run. That's what I'm saying. Well, we have to go back to school and start over again. This is why we have to go back and educate ourselves. We are so fucked with. We are so brainwashed and so screwed with and messed with every day of our lives that we haven't got a clue. And it's all about putting anxieties into our head And these anxieties, the cure for these fictional terrors, will be given to us by the same people who put this neuroses in our head to begin with. We are so messed with, it's not funny. This is the psychopathic control grid. Now, what you said, does that make us more susceptible to accepting these types? Yes, but not one-to-one, not in a relationship, or not in a job, or not in an organization. But as a whole in society, yes. Do you feel the same sense of revulsion and sadness when James Bond kills 90 guys with a machine gun? You know, that kind of a thing? And a few grenades. You cheer him on. But you don't ever think about, like, if that was real life, that's 90 sons and daughters, sons and fathers and brothers of people who'll never see that sibling ever again. You just think James Bond is great because he's going to be shagging some woman in 5 minutes. You know, that kind of a thing? And that's how we're trained to accept psychopathic behavior in authority figures. But James Bond, he's a spy. He's not some Norwegian loser. He's a spy. You know, that kind of a thing? Yeah. So therefore, he's better. He's allowed to do it because he's a government employee, and governments they're supposed to be psychopathic because it's great. And we have been trained like you would not believe it. We're completely trained. And that's why I said that the next stage is to go back and start over again, because it's just like the Tower card in the tarot, right? The Tower has to fall. It has to crumble. It's just like in the Midwich Cuckoos, where the scientist says, how do we deal with this pestilence among us? These children who want to kill everyone in the village. And he goes, we've never faced this before, so we'll have to do this. And what we'll have to do is we will literally have to just deconstruct and destroy this society. Now, I'm not talking about in terms of violence. Each individual amongst themselves will literally have to say, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm going to start over again. And it's going to be a complex process of exploring their consciousness, re-educating themselves, retraining their right brain back to where it was, finding a different meaning to everything, becoming very aware of symbolism and allegory, becoming very aware of media and ignoring it. No contact ever again with mass media will be extremely important in all this. We have to put Hollywood, we have to remove Hollywood and mainstream media from our minds and begin again. And then at the point when we're ready to start over again and we're psychologically reconstructed into a new consciousness of ourselves, then we can start going back to the movies, then we can start going back to shopping malls. The problem is we haven't been given a chance to take a pause and actually consider where we are in this world, because we're kept busy, go. And the majority of people on this planet know that the world sucks. They know that something's not right, but they're never given the time to sit down and stop and think about it. And this again comes back to the tarot. This is the Hermit card. They have to take time out to contemplate their own existence, to find this wisdom from the in and become a child again and move forward. And this is not happening. And this is why we have to sort of all become kind of like social dissidents at some stage in our life. And then when we've come to terms with that, like I haven't watched movies or TV for years because I needed to stop. I don't even have a TV anymore. I haven't been to the movie in years. And I don't pick up magazines. I don't even look at the covers. I mean, and my level of awareness is staggering now compared to what it was 5 years ago. I see the hidden messages everywhere, and they no longer affect me because I see them for what they are. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Where they felt before. Like for instance, I was in a shop the other day, and the magazine racks, they have all like celebrity magazines, and like they have there's this one magazine called Closer, right? It's CLOSER. And on the cover of the magazine, without fail, week after week, they have some disgraced celebrity. You know what I mean? Like someone who's no longer famous is like now on the Z list and going down. Maybe they had a little scandal. And in every issue of that magazine, the letter C is partially covered. So what you really read is loser.
I need a time out for a bio break. 2 seconds.
Yeah, I have to go now anyway.
Okay.
I'll see you later, okay?
Perfect, Thomas. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.